Hello, everyone. Tonight is super exciting. I get to talk with Laurence Mason. She is an intuitive life and success coach, NLP practitioner, EFT practitioner, and she also provides non-therapeutic hypnosis. Now that sounds awesome. Laurence first officially entered the coaching space this year, although she has, of course, unofficially been coaching friends and family for many years. And that eventually led her to this space in her career. I'm so excited for you to meet Lori, as I call her. Lori.
Hi, Tara.
Hi. So this is exciting.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this.
And thanks for coming. So, Lori, I want to warm everybody up to you with a couple quick speed questions, if you don't mind.
Yes, absolutely.
I should add some little sound effects in here, maybe in future apps. Lori, what would you say is your favorite food?
Pizza, hands down, extra cheese, please.
Wow, you're like a Ninja Turtle.
I am. Oh my God, except for people living in a sewer thing. But yes.
If you could choose just one, what would you say is your favorite book?
It's Angela's Ashes always comes to mind, which I don't know why, but it does. So we'll go with that.
I've heard of it, but I've never read it. Is this something you read in your earlier years?
Yeah, I think I was a young teenager when I read it, but I just remember it being so impactful. Honestly, I would have to go back and reread it myself as an adult because I'm sure that I would get so much more out of it now. But yeah, it was a fascinating.
Put it on your to-do list. That's your next book.
Yeah. Okay.
If you could choose your favorite place.
My favorite place would be Montauk in Long Island.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's so many songs about Montauk.
Are there really?
Yeah, like subtle nods to it.
Yeah, I guess so. It is so freaking beautiful out there. And it is just it's magical. And it's so funny because I think a lot of people have these preconceived notions about the Hamptons and
yeah,
the prestige of it and just famous people and stuff. But when I went, I did it the poor people way.
I hear that.
And I went camping. And
nice.
Say it is for me anyway was a deeply spiritual experience and
wow,
I loved every moment of it. I would go back any day.
Did you ever see Eternal Sunshine? That
Yeah,
movie with Jim. Didn't they go to Montauk?
that's a really good question. You know what? I do not retain information from movies well.
Me neither. I have to watch them 4 times. Yep.
People will spout movie quotes at me and unless it's Mean Girls, it's going right over my
head. 100%. Okay, moving on. If you could choose, what is your favorite scent?
It would have to be a lavender vanilla or fresh laundry.
I hear that.
Gets me every time.
Oh yeah, fresh out of the dryer.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then I'll hit you with one more for fun, and then we'll get into the juicy stuff, listeners. What would you say is your go-to decor item or something in your home that makes you happy?
Mirrors. And it's not because I like looking at myself. Mirrors because I love how they expand small spaces, and I think they're so freaking awesome in that way.
Yeah. Amen to that, sister. Okay, so you have to start from the bottom with us because I have a slight bit of knowledge in what you do and in the coach, I know a little about the coaching realm. I myself have been exploring this world, but for the listeners, please tell us, what is NLP?
So NLP stands for Neuro-linguistic programming. And it's so freaking amazing, right? So NLP looks at our subconscious thoughts and how they are creating our reality. And so you look at it, it's literally neuro-linguistic programming.
Wow.
It's so incredibly amazing because our subconscious minds take in so much information at any given moment, literally over 2.13 million bits of information.
Wow.
Yeah, which is overwhelming. I mean, that would overwhelm anyone, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We essentially are just really fancy computers with this processing hardware that allows us to generalize, distort, or just delete information. and then only a very small amount, only 5 to 9 bits of information actually make it to your conscious awareness.
That is an incredible statistic.
It's insane
And
when you,
that's all humans, applicable to every one of us. This
well,
is what our brains do.
so I want to kind of preface and say that I don't know how this would impact someone, for example, who maybe has like some cognitive challenges or
Right,
maybe is hard of hearing or blind or something like that. So I don't want to generalize and say definitely all humans, no matter what the circumstance.
right.
If we're going to look at like typical, like you and I,
Yeah.
then yes, we're going to say that.
So, an NLP coach, what would you be doing with your clients?
So, my favorite way to explain it is that we are going to essentially hack your mind so that
Awesome.
it works for you and not against you. You know, when you realize that you're taking in this much information on a subconscious level at any given moment, you really want to become very aware, not only of the information that's coming in, but also the words that are coming out of your mouth. Because what
Right,
you say is what you reaffirm to yourself. And that's what
right,
creates the reality that's around you. You know,
right,
people come to me and they're, wanting their life to up level. They want things to change. And I'm like, absolutely. Because literally, if you're getting that much information, on a subconscious level at any given moment, to me, that makes you an unlimited, infinite being, right?
right,
You have all the potential in the world. So let's use that potential to your advantage and get you to where you want to go. And then if you get there and you want to go further, then we do it again, you know?
wow,
So it's
powerful.
incredible. It is because so many people are stuck in the grind and they're not living to their full potential. I mean, you and I know all about that, right?
100%.
Getting stuck, young moms, young single moms, right?
Yep, yep,
Needing to just provide for our kids, and you just do. You don't
yep,
ask how or why or like, what am I doing here? You're
right.
I was in survival mode for the longest time. And this has taken me out of survival mode and actually given me an opportunity to A, not only pursue something I love and help people, but B, also craft a life that's way more in alignment with what I had envisioned for myself long before I became a mom.
We're frozen. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Laura?
hear you now.
Hi, you froze, but
Yeah.
you were saying that you said the last thing we heard was long before.
Oh, long before I became a mom.
Right,
you know? And
right,
I'm that younger part of myself that wants more.
right, right. So now can you explain also what is, so we got just our rough intro to NLP, but what is EFT?
So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and it's also otherwise known as tapping. So basically, when we're tapping on these different meridian points on our face and then on our upper body. And what it does is it disturbs the energy flow as
Wow.
you're going through something. And when you're doing that, you're actually allowing yourself to be rewired. So when I'm tapping with a client, what I'm doing is I'm starting with a negative reminder phrase. So let's say you were super anxious about something, right? We would start with the negative reminder phrases that completely and totally acknowledges whatever it is that you're feeling then. And then we would go through 3 more rounds of how you want to feel, how you're going to allow yourself to feel, and how you feel. So we go from like that negative state to saying, okay, I would rather feel this way, to saying, okay, I'm willing to allow to feel myself
Yeah.
this positive state. And then finally, the 4th round saying, I am feeling this positive way. And it creates a very quick shift for clients.
Wow.
It's incredible. And it's just so like life changing. I've had people include it with like meditation practices, journaling practices, and it really is a great form of self care.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I can't wait to talk more about it because that's actually something I've never been exposed to.
really.
Yeah, but so, and then Lori, the other thing that you specialize in would be non-therapeutic hypnosis. So what's that all about?
Oh my God. So hypnosis is incredible, right? So I did a story the other day and we were just talking about
Yeah,
this, about how we're actually often in a state of hypnosis. So I'm sure a lot of people listening to this right now will be like, I don't know what she's talking about. I've never
right.
been hypnotized in my life. But if you've ever scrolled mindlessly through social media, then you've been hypnotized.
Yeah. And
And
guys, so Lori posted a story the other day on Instagram where she was saying this. And this was a few days ago. And ever since she said it, I've caught myself a few times being like, oh, this is what she meant. Where you kind of just mindlessly get stuck doing the same thing. Is that how you would describe it?
yeah, and it's so funny, right? Because we think we have all this control over what we consume. Like back to those
Yeah.
2.13 million bits of information. Like
Yeah.
we think we have control, but really the only time you have control is when you are aware and present in the actual present moment. That's when
Wow.
you have control over your conscious awareness and your subconscious thoughts, you know?
Right. Right.
It's really fascinating. But anyway, all that to say, hypnosis is anything that can happen like a daydream. If you've ever daydreamed, you've been in hypnosis. It's very simple. It's a trance like state. It's not a sleep state. No one's controlling you. It's simply just being in a state of trance and deep relaxation. So, again, it's something that our bodies naturally do that we can actually use to our advantage to get the results that we want from life.
So for me, this is something new because we all know, we've all heard of hypnosis before.
Yeah.
But what I'm pulling from this is if we have awareness of this, we can use it as a tool.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. So there's a saying that says all hypnosis is self hypnosis, right?
Okay.
So if I were to hypnotize you right now, right, and you fell into trance and I told you, Tara, go rob a bank, you would not get up and go rob a bank, more than likely.
Like a total cartoon. Like,
Right. And the reason why is that that would be a violation of your own personal, values and beliefs.
yeah,
Most people, I mean, I
right.
hope I don't come across the day where I'm trying to get somebody into trance and, but I wouldn't make that suggestion anyway. But
All right.
even if I were to say to you, Tara, we're recording this, it's going to be uploaded to a bunch of different platforms, make a fool of yourself, say
Right. Right.
quack like a duck, you
Yeah.
still wouldn't do it because it's not something that aligns with your personal ethos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the whole idea is that once you're aware that this is something that our brains are all naturally capable of doing, we could also try to resist something that maybe is a negative, something that sneaks in and starts maybe hypnotizing you, such as social media consumption.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really interesting because I just finished, I was at this retreat for a week and it was so that I could get my certifications, right? So I graduated
Yeah.
on Friday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Very exciting stuff. And while I was there, I noticed that aside from posting on social media, my consumption just went because
Wow.
I just, for what? You know what I mean? It's actually, if you notice, once you become aware of it, there you realize how much more negative stuff there is out there than positive.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see you doing this podcast and to be creating this content because there is a need for this. There is a need for people to bring to their awareness the fact that they are actually very much in control of their own destiny and how their life plays out. And some people don't
Well,
like hearing that, but there is truth to that.
I feel so my intention for the podcast isn't it's so many things, as you know about me, because you do know me on a personal level. But it's also a matter of, oops, Lori, we lost you. Can you hear me? Hi, I lost you. Whenever that
I can hear you
happens,
now.
okay, whenever that happens, I'll have it trimmed. So we'll just post produce. But
Okay, cool.
so my intention for this podcast is many things, and you know that because you know me personally, but for the listeners, it's number one, I want to produce content that I feel can help people. So talking to people like Lori, when you're on a long drive, instead of listening, listen, music is healing and music is everything. But sometimes maybe it's good to turn on a podcast, meet some new people while you're driving, while you're stuck in traffic, open your mind, expand your mind to new ideas, new perspectives, new lenses. And, this is really what it's about for me. But on top of it, with social media constantly throwing things at us, serving us, advertisements, the latest influencers, which, none of this is necessarily bad, right? It's just how much of it are we actually controlling?
Right, exactly. Like, for example, for me personally, right? And I think you know this, and I don't mind talking about it, but like I spent the greater part of my life struggling with eating disorders, right?
Yeah,
So for me, seeing one very fit woman on social media is not going to send me over the edge. In fact, it might
yeah,
inspire me. But
right.
seeing, I don't know, 30 in a row, if I
Yeah,
stuck on that hashtag of like Fitspo or whatever, fit
yeah,
moms, I'm going to get off my phone and feel like shit about myself.
yeah,
So there is obviously we have to take responsibility for our own consumption, right? Like
yeah,
we're not these helpless beings that are tethered to our phones. Like we have the option of disconnecting at any point in time. That's why the do not disturb is there. You can literally put controls on your phone to limit your consumption. And if that's something that you struggle with, then you should do that.
yeah.
You should do that.
But it's also about, so something I've been working on, because I was one of these people, and I'm still, again, I'm fighting, and it's a practice every day, is I have to answer them. If
Mhm.
my clients text me, I must answer them. If my friends text me or call, I must answer. But where is the boundary for yourself?
Right.
And setting those boundaries with technology could make or break your day. It could make or break your sleep, your week.
I'm going to tell
So
you, I think it could make or break your business. And
100%.
here's
Yeah.
why. It's so funny because often we feel so pressured to be constantly available for people. But the reality of the situation is we need to be available, first of all, for ourselves. That's the most important thing.
Right.
Second of all, people respect people with boundaries,
Yes.
especially business owners. Especially business owners.
Oh, yeah.
And we teach people how to treat us. That's just
Yes.
plain fact. And if you teach your clients from day one, and I'm speaking to anybody, that you will be at their beck and call, well then that's exactly what you're going to be. So if that's how you're going to operate your business, you better make sure you increase your prices to make it worth your while.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot to put on
Right.
a person, especially when we're talking about small businesses that don't always have administrative support, and
Right.
that. When you're playing all those roles, it gets to be a lot.
100%. And you know what? There's the concept of time blocking, right? There's the concept of everything has its time.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm such a creative, and I like to go with the flow, and I like to do things as they come towards me. But that did me a disservice for so long, because now it's like what I've learned to do is tell my clients, listen, once a week, let's establish a day. Thursday, great. Thursday's your day. Thursday's all about you. That's when we meet. That's when we talk. And we can talk leading up to Thursday, but we have this appointment. That's your time. Whereas before, I didn't do that. And then it became a free for all. And I had people pulling and controlling me. And how unhealthy is that for you?
So unhealthy, right? Because again, we go back to not having that control and also not having that rest. I was having a conversation with
Yeah.
someone not that long ago about how important it is to have productive rest. And
Right.
it could import like anything on someone, especially a business owner, is having that productive rest. Because if you are, okay, let's say this is the scenario, right? You're working with your client all day long, you're exhausted, you finally crash on the couch, it's 9 o'clock at night, and you're scrolling, you're doom scrolling, right? It's just, you can't help it. And then you start to think, oh shit, I gotta make Dax's lunch for tomorrow morning. Fuck me. All right, I'm not right now. Like, okay, all right, I know I got a load of laundry waiting to be swapped out. Okay, it doesn't matter. And you're essentially dissociating, right? Like you're
Yes.
keep defaulting to your phone. But what's actually happening in the background is that your body is not in a state of rest at.
Wow.
We lie to ourselves and we say, "Oh, I'm resting." Oh, and honestly, I couldn't figure out for the longest time, and I think being in quarantine, right, for as long as we were, is what made me realize this. I never felt rested, and I
Yeah.
couldn't figure out why. And then I
Right.
realized that essentially the procrastination that was happening while I was resting was actually exhausting me more than just getting up and doing the damn thing and then actually giving myself proper rest.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
We're so overstimulated.
So overstimulated. So overstimulated just as a society in general. And then if you take, the young business owner title and you attach it to that, it's so much worse, I
Oh
think.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, listen, don't get me wrong. Being a business owner is a blessing and it's beautiful and there's so many great things that come along with it. But yes, you do essentially have that many more people tugging at your skirt
Oh
because
yeah.
that's what you do. You serve people.
Yes.
Right? So we have to serve them in a way that is not only beneficial to them, but also doesn't harm us?
Yes. Yes. And this is very relevant for me. So I'm feeling very like fulfilled with this conversation. I hope the listeners are also. But for me, it's, being a business owner, when I get still with myself and I think about, well, what's my why? And I know my whys are, I want to have control over my future.
Hmm.
I want to be able to be in a creative, what's the word, a creative flow for a living versus a regimen. And that's really my reason. And then when I go deeper than that, my why is for my mother. My why is for my son, giving them that example. Or in the case of my mother, it's my mother doesn't, she couldn't, she's handicapped, legally blind. She couldn't if she wanted to. So why would I waste my gifts?
Right.
Even as simple as, why would I waste my vision
Mm.
and not use it for something profound, rather than like, let me grab my keys, get my coffee, go to my day to day. Trying hard not to knock those who feel that's the right path for them, but for me it didn't feel right.
Right.
But with all of that said, it's incredibly difficult to rest.
Yeah,
There's always something calling your attention. And I think you're right. I think we deserve that time for ourselves.
we do.
What
And
would you say is a good rule of thumb for somebody who's like, you know what? That's going to be my new thing. I'm chilling. I'm resting. What would be some good advice for them on where to begin?
I think my advice, generally speaking, for anybody who is in business with themselves, is to first get extremely granular with your organization. Really, truly, like beyond time blocking, right?
Yeah.
And it's not about making sure that you check off these time blocks perfectly. It's never about that because we have to be flexible with ourselves and with our business. But it is about at least having the framework for what you want your time to look like
Yeah.
and really deeply, deeply trying to honor that for yourself. Right. And honestly, for me, it's office hours. That's what it looks like. It looks like office
Yeah.
hours, Monday through Friday. Listen, I am not about to give up my life in the 9 to 5 space so that I can work all weekend long. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yes.
It looks like making sure you still take vacations,
Yeah.
staycations if you have to. It doesn't matter. You still have to carve that time out for yourself. You have to look at your days and say, okay, what is the most important thing for me? What do I need most right now? Do I need time at the gym? Do I need family dinners? What is it that's going to fill my cup so that when I wake up, when my feet hit the ground tomorrow morning, I can go ahead and serve my clients with all my energy, all my power, and just everything that I want to give them. Because I don't
Right.
want anybody listening to this conversation to think that we are complaining about being business owners, because
No.
that's so not the case. But
Right.
there are still challenges. That's like with anything else in life. There's challenges that come along with working a 9 to 5. The
Oh yeah.
same, that there's challenges that come along with being a business owner. So
Right.
being extremely organized, like for me, I know I used the lunch example earlier, and it's really silly, but I do not like taking 15 minutes out of my day every night to pack a lunch.
Yeah.
So Sundays, I pack lunches for the week. And that's
Wow.
in the morning, it's grab and go. Everything goes in the lunchbox and it's done. It's not hurting anybody.
Right.
If anything, it's actually making me a better mom because I get to spend those 10, 15 minutes playing a game, taking a walk, reading a book, doing something that actually nourishes mine and my daughter's relationship as opposed to being a stressor.
Now, Lori, how old is your daughter?
She just turned 6 last week.
Wow. When's her birthday? So
June
it's
11.
June. So
Yeah.
what's her sign?
She's a Gemini.
Oh, that's my mom.
Yeah.
I don't know much about them.
Yeah.
So just to keep us centered here. So
Yeah.
with your daughter and with you being a mom and with you now a business owner, what would you say was your biggest challenge or is?
So one thing that I'm actively working through is the mom guilt.
Yeah.
And I think that's a tough one for a lot of moms, whether they are business owners or working moms or even stay at home moms. I think
Right.
no matter what kind of mom you are, there is always this nagging feeling that you could somehow be doing better.
Yes.
And it is the cruelest form of self punishment that we could ever throw on ourselves
Yeah.
because it is so unfair. And I'm sorry to say it, but I don't think dads deal with it the same way
I
that we
don't either. Nope.
don't. I mean, I'm not
Sorry,
saying
guys.
people don't deal with any guilt at all, but because the societal expectation still is and always has been that fathers are expected to be working outside of the home and have minimal, impact on child rearing, they just don't get the guilt from outside like we do. And I
Right.
think the outside guilt has become like internalized for a lot
Yes.
of us, you know?
Well, because now we have to be excellent mothers and draw an income and maintain a home and have a social life. And how do you have time for all of that? And
Yeah,
have an exercise routine and a meditation routine and time for religion or whatever it is.
gotta remember to
Time
drink
to
a
drink
lot of
all this
water.
water. Like anybody who's not on video, Lori has a 9-gallon jug of water. Yeah.
I gotta stay hydrated. I mean, that's
100%.
that's like number one on my list because I mean, otherwise I don't have long, So,
Yeah. 100%.
but yeah, it's overwhelming, right? And like, especially, I mean, you're engaged now, which is so amazing, and I'm so happy for
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
But I'm sure you also remember what it was like to be a single mom for a long
My
time.
scenario is a little different because I definitely will never forget how it felt to be a single mom in that time frame when my son wasn't even one.
Hmm.
It's you're wearing a million hats, but now I have a fiance, but he works opposite schedules. So
Mm,
he works overnights. And there's a little bit of overlap where he's able to relieve me, but most times not so much. I'm still doing everything, in terms of like the motherly duties.
right.
Um, but I'm blessed because I found I've magnetized my opposite. He is neat. I'm messy. He
Mhm.
does like to do the laundry when he can.
Right.
It's but I'll never forget that feeling because that feeling, it creeps up and it's there all the time of like, I'm not being a good enough mom. There's times that I'm doing work for my clients and I'm at my desk and my son is perfectly happy coloring next to me. He will pull a chair up right here if you're watching this on video and he will color and I still feel like it's not good enough that I'm next to him because I'm not coloring with.
Right. Right. It's like the intense amount of pressure
Yeah.
that we put on ourselves to be these moms that, quite honestly, our children don't really need. You know,
Yeah.
like it's not that it wouldn't be nice to color with your son, but it's not something that he needs either. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like it's just this idea that we've allowed to be imposed onto us, just like the same way that like my daughter doesn't need to eat like the celery sticks with the peanut butter with the raisins to be made to look like ants. Like
Oh yeah.
kudos to you if that is the kind of mom that you are, but I gave up being that mom a while ago because one, it didn't make me happy, two, she wasn't eating it, and like it
Right.
really just created more pressure, more pressure, more
Yes.
pressure. And I'm so
Yes.
thankful because NLP, when I started this journey with getting certified in NLP, actually started to help me let go, let go, let go,
Yeah.
let go. And then I feel like, we hit a fever pitch with the certification because the certification is in and of itself kind of like a group coaching experience because
Yeah.
we're all learning, relearning, I should say, the techniques in person together and
Yeah.
just being able to like experience them in person. And I was lucky because the retreat was local. So I
Right.
was able to see my daughter every day after the retreat
Yeah.
and actually implement it into my home life, where
Wow.
things that it would have set me over the edge. I'm talking stupid shit, spilled cat food on the floor, like dumb stuff that
Right.
no one should care about. But because, again, being that single parent, being the only person who's there to clean up
Yeah.
spilled cat
Yeah. Yeah.
food, bedtime, read the stories,
Yeah.
it was like in the past would have sent me absolutely over the edge. Not even angry with her, just angry at the situation. And now I'm like, it's spilled cat food. Okay, well, no one's gonna die. We're gonna
Yeah.
get ready for bed, and when you're sleeping,
Right.
then I'll come back down here and clean it up. And in the meantime, the cat can eat the food off the
I
floor.
think this conversation, every mom or even mother to be one day, you are not going to have everything perfect all at once. It'll never happen. And you touched on something before about drawing you said, maybe this isn't what our child needs, like, feeling guilty and should I color with him? That goes in with everything. Think about their birthdays. How many gifts are enough? And we just buy and we buy and we think, oh, well, that's not enough. Two things, no, we need more. Christmas. Where's there this line? Where's the line? Why do we think our kids need these things? What do they really need?
Well, I kind of want to bring you back to the original, where we started this conversation, which is how much of this information are we subconsciously getting from social media?
100%.
When you look on social media, and listen, I'm guilty of it. Okay. I'm going to out myself here. I've been the mom who posted the pile of presents on the kitchen table, and it's, did I listen? I'm going to be extremely candid here and let you all know the first like 4 or 5 years of my daughter's life, maybe like three, four, I did a number on myself trying to pretend like I was mom and dad,
Yeah.
right? And like buying as if I was mom and dad. Like it's not feasible. We live in New Jersey. Like this is
Yeah.
not like a sustainable lifestyle for someone
No.
who makes like an average income for
Yeah.
me to be out here buying all these gifts, doing all of these things. Like that was not sustainable for me. So if you're listening to this and you're a parent and you feel pressured to buy all of the things for your kid, like just remember that there's maybe like one thing that they would really, really love to have, and maybe like two things that they actually really, really need. And it's perfectly fine to be that parent who draws the line and
Yeah.
doesn't have a pile of gifts. If
Yeah.
you can afford it, kudos to you. But if you're going to sit here and put yourself into debt to buy things for your kid that are just going to end up at Goodwill next year,
Yeah.
fucking do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it
You know,
because,
my cousin follows this protocol, and granted, her children are older, but they started doing this one thing that you want, one thing that you need, and one thing that will knock your socks off.
oh, I
So, like a surprise. And so it's narrowed to like 3 gifts.
okay.
And I'm still wrestling, like, as we're having this conversation, I'm that mom that's like, well, especially as a designer too, like, well, from a scale perspective, the tree is this big, so I need to have X amount. I can't show him 4 gifts. Or if you're still running the Santa concept in your home, it's, well, then there's from me, and then there's from Santa's coming, and, the line. It's so there's no line
There is
anymore.
no limit. The limit does not exist.
Yeah.
We get to Santa Claus, right? Let's talk Santa for a second. Kids go to school. And I hear teachers say this every year around Christmas time. If you're going to buy your kid an expensive Christmas gift, please do not make it from Santa Claus, because there are
Yes.
to be poor children in that
Yes.
class. And you and I have both been those poor kids, Tara,
Yeah.
that end up with a pair of socks from Santa Claus and want to know why Santa doesn't fucking love them.
Yeah. I remember one year my mother, I was a preteen, so I knew there was, Santa wasn't a thing. And I have to, I think, put a disclaimer on this episode. Don't listen in the car with your kids. But I knew Santa wasn't a thing. And she had to get our gifts from a church that year because she couldn't afford to put anything under the tree.
Mm,
But I remember the look on her face, like, because she still got to wrap them and everything. And I don't remember how I became aware that they were donated gifts,
mm,
but the joy that she felt, the absolute joy that she felt being able to give me something,
right,
like, I can think back to that now. And you know what? This conversation is so eye opening because now this Christmas, I'll remember that.
right.
And she wasn't happy because, oh, Tara has a plentiful bounty of gifts under the tree. It was because she was able to give me something. Because there are parents that can't give a thing.
Yeah, not a thing, not even a meal.
Yeah.
Even a meal. And
Yeah.
one thing that I really look forward to doing with my daughter as she gets older is like serving during the holidays, and like going to a soup kitchen or doing something like
Beautiful.
that can really open up to her eyes to, yes, okay, there are going to be moments in life where maybe you don't have what other kids have. And at that point, honestly, maybe not even because I can't afford it, because I don't see that being the trajectory that I'm on, but
Right.
I, as your mother, genuinely feel that you do not need it at this point in your life.
Right.
Like,
Right.
phone, like, I'm sorry. I'm not giving her a phone. This is
Yeah.
outrageous.
Yeah.
There are so many things that little kids have access to these days that is completely, totally, in my opinion anyway, not acceptable for my child. Do what you
Yeah.
want with yours.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I see fit with mine. And that may not always fit the societal norms, because
Yeah.
I don't agree with some of
I
them.
just went through this with myself where I let my son he has a phone, but it's not activated. It's just a device we're using in lieu of a tablet because his tablet broke. But I saw him on it the other day, and I'm just like, this is a nightmare. I
Mm,
looked at and I just said, this is an absolute nightmare. And I know it's just an innocent game, and sometimes it's an educational thing, but the fact that these children, are at our children's age, they don't know anything about life yet, and they're learning through this digital world instead of from us.
right.
So I even did a little, what do they call it, a reel on Instagram where I took the phone and I replaced it with some educational books that my cousin actually sent me, who is the same cousin who does the what you want, what you need, something obnoxious. She's a very good influence on all of us here, but
I
she
love that.
sent him a bunch of books, and you know what? He celebrated the books.
Amazing.
And
Amazing.
it's our job to serve them with things like this,
Right.
instead of just, oh, well, everybody else's kid has. So
Right.
why should we be that way? And can we speak to external validation versus internal?
Oh my gosh. On what level?
That
Parents or
I think this is all encompassing with some of the work that you do also with subconscious mind hacks,
yeah,
is that sometimes we just operate on autopilot and we don't know why we feel how we feel or why we're doing what we're doing. But if we take a minute to sit back, and if your reason for doing things is something other than maybe something in here, so if it's, well, all the other kids, the
right.
judgments of the other parents, or my family would say the following.
The family one is a big one, right? So
Yeah.
like that's a huge one. That was a big one for me. It actually almost kept me from going into coaching because I showed
Yeah.
and told my parents about the investment that I was going to be making in myself by getting certified as an
Hmm.
NLP practitioner. And both my dad and my stepmom kind of like scoffed at the idea and they were like, "What is this? Like, oh my God, another one of your schemes, you know?" Like, okay, well, it's not a scheme. And, it's so funny because my dad was the first one who, after like, I'd say about 60 to 90 days, was like, "I'm really starting to notice a difference in you." And I was like, "Well, I'm starting to
Wow.
notice a difference in myself too, And like, it's so funny because now I've so far exceeded their expectations.
Yes.
And I'm really glad that I trusted myself, and it's so
100%.
funny because like I told you, like I'm an intuitive life coach. And so part of what I want to do is help people get back in touch with that inner voice. Like, who is that voice? And I wish I had the picture to show it to you. If I find it, I'll send it. Maybe you can like clip it in editing. I had a really cool moment this weekend where, I was having a friend of mine snap pictures of me as I want to be in the future. And so there was a podium at the event, and I stood at the podium and I pretended like I was speaking, right?
Right.
Because one of my goals is to be a speaker. Like, I want to speak on stages.
Yeah.
And so I had her snap this picture. And it was so funny because the angle she took it at, it looked like I was only standing on one leg. Like my other leg is like tucked behind the other.
Yeah.
And it brought me back to this picture, the first school picture I ever took in the United States. And it wasn't even like an official school picture, it was just the first day of school. And they took a picture of me, and I'm standing on this little footbridge. And the way my legs are tucked, it looks like I almost looks like I only have one leg. Like,
Yeah.
and it's so funny because when I was looking at them, I was like, "Oh my God, you literally captured like my inner child." It's
Yeah.
so crazy. And like, one thing I can say, your inner child is never going to take you down the wrong path.
Yeah.
Like, it knows more than anybody, especially for people in our generation, I feel
Right.
like millennials, even zillennials, and some elder like Gen Z that didn't have that immediate access to the internet from their imprint stage. So in NLP, just so you know, imprint stage is anything from age 0 to 7. So
Okay.
we're talking about those first 7 years where you're literally like, my coach calls it a walking subconscious mind,
Wow.
right? And so everything that you say and do at that point is getting imprinted into your mind. And so interesting for people our age to really examine our beliefs about the world around us and see how they line up with what was put into our minds at that point in time.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
I can name so many in my life, in my personal sphere of influence, who don't think this way
Yeah.
and who maybe resist thinking this way.
Yeah.
But you uncover so much about yourself when you do. Listeners, I want to just tap on something here that Lori said, her first, would you say, photo in the United States. So she's not originally from the US.
Yeah.
And that's part of your beautiful story.
It
If you
is.
wanted to touch on that quickly, where you're from.
Sure. So it's so funny. So I was born outside of Montreal. I moved here when I was 7. We actually just celebrated 25 years in the
Wow.
US. And I have such a tumultuous immigration story. I don't know that I want to get into all of the details.
No, no, not necessary. But just the
Um,
concept of you're Canadian.
well, so it's actually really funny, right? So I had a conversation the other day. I've gotten into this habit of having conversations with my inner child.
Right.
And the other day, I really needed to speak, and this is probably going to sound so weird, but follow me. I really needed to speak with my inner 7 year old because I was having a lot of mixed feelings about like moving forward with my life and what that represented. And then I was reminded that my inner 7 year old is deathly afraid of moving because
Wow.
moving means leaving everyone I love behind.
Yes.
That's what it meant for me. That's how old I was when I moved here. And so I started to speak to her, and then I was like, wait a second. My inner 7 year old doesn't understand English. She only speaks
Wow.
French. And so I literally had a conversation with myself in French and like self
Wow.
soothing in another language because at that particular point in my life, if anybody had come to me trying to comfort me in English, it wouldn't really have worked. I wouldn't have
Right.
understood them. I would have understood that they were trying to comfort me, but I wouldn't have understood the magnitude of their words.
Yeah.
I was actually able to tell myself, like, hey, moving is a really natural part of life. And sometimes it's good to move on to other things. And maybe you don't understand that now, but I'm actually here as your future self to let you know that you go on to move a lot of times in your life. And every time you do, it's actually for your highest good. And if
Yeah.
you can believe it, you actually have a daughter now that's almost as old as you are in this world.
Yeah.
And she needs you, and you need you to get over this fear of moving forward because moving forward doesn't mean being forgotten.
Right. And how did that make you feel afterwards, after that conversation?
It was super heavy and it was not a short conversation. It was a day of nurturing that I actually had to give myself. So it was one of those days where I posted on my Instagram stories and I said, "Hey, I'm taking a day to like recharge and honor myself." And that's exactly what I was doing. And I literally
Wow.
like I lead from a heart space on those days where I was like, okay, what would 7 year old me want to have for lunch today? What would she want to do with this extra time? Maybe she'd want to read a book. Maybe she'd want to watch some television. Maybe
Right.
she'd want some extra cheese pizza. Maybe she'd want, to take a walk out in nature. What would make her feel better? Because she's the one who's coming to the surface who needs to be healed right now and who
Wow.
needs my attention. Almost never about who I am in this moment because who I am in any given moment is a rational and well adjusted adult.
Right.
There are parts of me and parts of everyone that come up to the surface that need to be healed and handled with care.
So there's what's so interesting about this to the listeners too is that in my design philosophy, so I follow what's now called the design therapy method. And it's a 5-step process, but one of the things I go over with people is, can you describe your childhood home? And I like to go into that and how their childhood home made them feel. What were some of the best parts about it, some of the worst parts about it. And then we put that away and then I move on. But then later when I'm getting to know their I call it their non-negotiables, like their absolutes, things you absolutely love and things you absolutely don't like. So some people would say, I absolutely don't like the color yellow, Tara. I don't want it anywhere near my home. Okay, it goes in that column. But sometimes there's a correlation between your childhood home or the home that you lived in with somebody else to what you're trying and attempting to create in this new space for yourself. And when people hear concepts like this, like what you're discussing and describing, where it's like, okay, sit with yourself, bring up your inner child, spend time with them, speak to them. To some people, that's an outlandish concept that they're very unfamiliar with, but we've all done this in some capacity simply by recalling childhood, right?
Yeah, and it's so funny because this kind of goes back to that concept of what I was saying before. All hypnosis is self hypnosis. So if
Yeah.
you find yourself daydreaming about your childhood bedroom just randomly on a Sunday afternoon, guess what? You are, whether you realize it or not, doing inner child work.
Yeah.
You're going back to that space and time because there's something there for you to learn from.
Yes.
A lot of people really are quick to, like you said, to turn away from that. It's too woo, it's too weird, it's too out there. But I firmly believe that if you don't heal the past, it will follow you
Oh
into
yeah.
every aspect of your future. And the more you ignore it, the worse. Have you ever ignored a little kid? Is
Annoying.
it ever a good exactly? Is it ever a good idea?
Sorry. But
Not a good idea though. Like
right.
if you're trying to get things done and be productive, ignoring a small child is not a good strategy.
No, you need to turn your attention towards them and take care of what they need so that you can then refocus.
So why do we treat our inner children any differently?
Well, it's those that maybe deny the concept of it.
Right, exactly. But it's just interesting. And I hope that there's somebody listening to this right now that's going, holy shit, there might be some validity to this.
And Laura, you know what? In my own life, I can say it's a series of seed planting.
Yes.
And
Oh,
I have friends that are in this realm of self healing, and it's taken me a very long time to where I personally felt called to hire coaches, where I realized I can't do this on my own. I need experts. And, that's where people like you come in, because you're more than just a coach for reprogramming the subconscious mind, but you could, in essence, lead somebody to a more successful life, a more fruitful life, a happier life. So it's more than just something for you to do as a form of therapy in the same category as maybe a yoga class. This is something that if you do it, your life could go on a completely different trajectory.
your life will change if you have
Yes.
a coach. Like
Yes.
one way or another, your life will change. That is for sure. There's no way that it couldn't unless you literally do none of the work.
Now,
Because,
when you're, oh, I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, that's okay. I mean, for me personally, when someone is hiring me as their coach, there's an agreement that goes into place. And part of that agreement, and it's literally written in black and white for my clients to read, is that part of your responsibility as a client is to show up 100%. This is not a 50-50 relationship. I'm
Yeah.
not here to complete you. I am here to guide and assist you in
Yeah.
your own awakening, in your own revolution, whatever you want to call it. But I am not here to complete you. I
Yeah.
can't do that. And I'm not here to create codependency either. So, my job and my client's job, both of us, we're responsible to show up 100%. That is,
And something that my coaches have gone over with me, and this concept, guys, is so, I never would have expected anything like this to be coming out of my mouth, or that I would even have a greater understanding of money, right? But money, when you pay a coach or you pay for something like this, an interior designer, anything in the creative industry or the service industry, money is energy, and it's an energy exchange. And when you pay for something, you're exchanging energy. You're already invested because you've used that financial tool that we use. I wish I had, oh, I do.
ah,
We've assigned power to this.
right.
And all of that power by saying, Lori, girl, take this.
Yeah.
We've kind of just tethered ourselves together.
Yeah.
Whereas all of this free coaching that you can access online, maybe you don't take it as seriously because there's no energy attached to it.
I think there's something to be said, like you said, about planting seeds. And I think a lot of the free coaching that is available out there serves exactly in that capacity, right?
Yes.
It's there to plant the seed. One on one coaching or even group coaching is there for the people that are beyond the seedling sprout, like they ready to really grow, like they're ready to bloom, they're ready to flower, they want to get to that next stage, they want to break ground. It is groundbreaking. And you're
Yeah.
completely right about, the monetary exchange. Money is energy. And everything that we do, if you stop and you fill up your gas tank, that is an energetic exchange. It's
Yeah.
all energy all the time. And again, maybe a little bit of an weird concept for people who don't really buy into the energy exchange thing. But, to those people, I would say, the next time you give or contribute $5 or $10 to a charitable cause, set the intention of receiving that money back in one way or another in a certain time frame, whether
Yes.
5 or 10 days, right? And then
Yes.
see if that money comes back to you, whether
Yes.
it's in the form of a free coffee at Starbucks, maybe somebody in line ahead of you pays for your drink, whatever the case may be. But you will see the universe return that gift to you, because that's how it works.
Yes. And I can tell you that I used to charge by the hour for my work, and I've discontinued that way of collecting because I believe that people, when they come to me for interior design service, they're looking for a specific outcome.
Right,
And as long as I deliver that outcome to them, that, they don't need to be concerned with how long it took me to get, they don't need to know it took me 3 hours or 12 hours drafting options for their space plan. They just want the outcome. And
right.
I think people are distracted by, oh, it took 10 hours, or I don't want to call Tara because I don't want to have to be charged for an hour of her time. So now I blanket charge, here's my flat fee, and you will get your outcome because there's a contract stating that I owe you this deliverable or this list of
Right,
deliverables for that amount of money. And
right.
I have noticed, Lori, I don't know, I guess it could be working so far, but people are showing up, my clients are showing up so much differently.
I'm sure.
They are just raring and ready to go. They're not concerned about the money aspect. They're not distracted by it. It's almost like it's a cleaner energy between us.
Well, you're also attracting people that are probably willing to give you more money up front. And that's not lost on me.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody who's going to nickel and dime you for your hourly rate, well, we only spoke for 5 minutes, so you better not charge me for the full hour.
Yeah.
It is a much lower vibrational energy with regards to money than somebody who's going to pay you a full retainer up front to get the job done.
Oh, yeah. And then that speaks to other people's scarcity,
Right.
which we all have. And guys, we can go on another episode about this combo,
Scarcity
but
might come to mind.
scarcity mindset of, I only have, $10,000 allotted to this. I can't possibly go over that feeling of that moment of budgeting, which we've all been.
Right.
But if you shift your mindset, and it's like a whole life subconscious mind overhaul, right? Of like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to freely release this money because just like you said, it'll come back.
Yeah.
And
Always.
I've been doing it, and guess what? It's coming back.
Of course it is. It is a law of the universe. It's
Yes.
all it is. It's nothing, it's groundbreaking only because we're becoming aware of it now. But make no mistake about it, it's nothing new.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just new
Yeah.
to us. It's new to our awareness, but it's not new. Not
Yeah.
by a shot.
Yeah. But these are all concepts. I think we've given such an introduction also about, the kinds of categories that you are capable of coaching in. This has been therapy for me, for you, hopefully for a listener. But
And
look how many ways our subconscious mind comes into play in work, in motherhood, in family. It's all around. And can you imagine how your life can change?
I know it can be transformed. And it's so funny because in the coaching industry, there's a lot of pressure for people to niche down, right? Like, you
Yes.
gotta
Yes.
niche down. And I'm like, no, I won't. And that's
Right.
just because I know myself. I know the things that I've gone through in my life. And I am not going to take away someone's potential growth by entering into a niche that maybe they don't necessarily fit.
Right.
I want to work with business owners. I want to work with moms. I want to work with young women. I want to work
Yes.
with all different kinds of people. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm only going to coach moms in business, or I'm only going to coach, moms or only business owners. That doesn't serve everybody that I want to serve. I might
Yeah.
have group programs that only cater to those specific people, but generally speaking, my one-on-one coaching is open to whoever wants to transform their life.
And that's beautiful because everybody could use it. And, I agree with you fully about niching. And some of my colleagues and even some of my coaches are all about it. But that's like for me as a designer saying, you know, I only want to design bathrooms. Well, no, instead, I want to help families transform their lives via the healing modality of interior design. That's
Right.
enough of a niche for me. Is anyone who reads that sentence and it resonates?
Right. And I just want to, we talked about plugs before, but I'm going to plug you right now.
Oh,
For those of you who have not had the pleasure of seeing Tara's work, she has not seen my new home yet. But when I was in my old home, Tara came over and literally spent an entire day with me, just absolutely tearing it first to shreds and getting rid of so much shit that I no longer needed and making it so much more livable for me and my daughter. And we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment at the time. So
yeah,
space was truly, truly limited. And I was actually really sad when we had to leave because you had transformed it into this space that was really functional for us. Of course, we ended up moving to a 2-bedroom. So
right.
that
Well,
ended
I
up,
remember, I remember that day. That
yeah,
day that we worked together, you were in a state of overwhelm.
total overwhelm. Yes.
And people have a tendency too of like, you have all these things and people don't often want to release them because it's that scarcity of like, I need to keep this. What if
Yeah.
I can never get this again? What if I need it later? When in reality, if you sit and center yourself, if you need that.
Right.
It's just giving you that handhold to allow you to do it. And you did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And we
But
rearranged everything and changed the energy in the home.
yeah, but you were so incredibly helpful and so insanely compassionate, which in that moment, like more than anything, more than design help, even, I needed someone who saw me for who I was and not my mess,
Yeah.
and B, was able to just, from a completely non judgmental standpoint, say, hey, let's do X, Y, and Z. I know this is going to help you. It may not solve all your problems right away, but it's going to do a lot for you.
Yes.
You know,
Amen. Yep.
really, really changed things for me. And I definitely want to touch on what you just said about like people holding on to things. Oh my God. If there are any other immigrants listening to this pod right now, you probably know exactly what the hell we are talking about. Not saying that you have to be an immigrant in order to relate, but I always tell the story, and I'm glad that my mom will probably never hear this because she would kill me if she did. But we lived in a home, the last house we lived in together before my parents divorced. We lived in a home that had well water, not city water. And so my mom would get like panicked that we were going to run out of fresh water, right? I don't know where this fear was coming from, but it was happening. And so she would rinse out like laundry jugs. And when it would rain, she would collect rainwater in the laundry jugs. And I remember we massive basement filled, like the line went around the perimeter of the basement. And then I remember, like, this is part of the immigration story, as you know, like, my dad got deported and my mom had already gone back to Canada. So my sister and I were left to clean up this house. And we were horrified at the things that we found in that basement. I mean, the water jugs is just like the tip of the iceberg. Like, I'm talking shit from the 70s when my parents first got married. And it is exactly that, a scarcity mindset. Like, well, better keep that old bed frame. You never know when you're going to need a twin size bed again. Like, no,
But we excuse it as being wise or,
penny
you
wise,
know,
thrifty, whatever the case. Yeah. And in reality, it's like I was never going to need a bed frame from the 1970s, like that was just not, I'm 5'8". I'm too tall for a twin size bed.
Yeah.
Like I don't enjoy feeling monsters picking at my feet when I go to sleep at night.
Yeah.
Like it's just really funny. I mean, it's funny now looking back at it, but holy shit, that was traumatizing as
Yeah.
fuck.
Yeah.
Like to have to clean up all of that and literally like come to this like face to face realization like, holy shit, are they hoarders? Like,
Yeah.
is that what's been happening here? But my mom grew up super poor,
Right.
and like she had literally nothing. Like
Yeah.
she bounced around from like aunt and uncle's houses because
Right.
her mom literally gave up custody of her when she was 14.
Yeah.
Well, like I from that point, like if I'm being a compassionate person, forget even being her daughter, right? Like just a compassionate human being, I can understand how she arrived at that point in her life where she felt she needed to collect rainwater in case there was ever a
Yes.
water shortage in our well. But
Right.
as a parent now myself, like that is absolutely not something I want to model to my child. Like
Right.
we're not living in this alternate reality where we need to collect rainwater in order to like bathe and clean our clothes. Like
Yeah.
that's not I'm not ever going to allow that to
Right.
become our reality. But because it was something that my mom actually experienced when she was younger, I have to imagine that in her subconscious mind that possibility was actually really real.
Yes.
That's why.
And it's this is fascinating because this is I deal with this on both spectrums. I deal with collectors who
Mm,
accumulate collections of things, and I encounter collectors more often than I would have thought I would.
wow.
And if you notice, collectors aren't just, oh, this guy collects Matchbox cars. It's also the
Right.
women who have 30 shampoos. And then I step in to help them renovate their bathroom, and it's, where do all these shampoos, well, Tara, I have a large collection of shampoos. And then how do I eloquently and compassionately say, essentially, you don't need 30 shampoos.
Mm,
The design will be more successful if you don't have, because now I have to find, and you have to inevitably pay for storage for 30 shampoos.
right.
So it's just, I almost said the word insanity, but I meant to say incredible
Right.
how all of this is so deeply embedded in our subconscious.
Yeah. So can I give you a really powerful question to ask
Yeah.
your client next time that happens?
Yes, please.
When did you decide that you needed X, Y, and Z? So in this example, when did you decide that you needed 30 different kinds of shampoo? And
Yeah.
you're going to see their minds really look for that answer. They're going to go, like, you'll probably see their eyes like go back and forth because they're searching on their timeline if they're being
Can we
honest.
role play this and I'll be the client?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so ask me this and it'll be in regard to shampoos, okay?
Sure. So, Tara, when did you decide that you needed 30 different kinds of shampoo at home?
Well, I'm not sure, but I've purchased all of them and they're all, here, and maybe I wanted a new one and I just don't feel right throwing away a perfectly good one, so I keep it.
Okay, yeah, I can totally see how you arrived there. So, what can you do to minimize this so that I don't have to find a way to store all of this for you? Because you have to know that this is probably too much shampoo for any one person.
Yeah. And then at that point I could probably say, well, I guess I haven't used this, and kind of, you know, give them a chance to even examine it,
Right,
where, well, this is Pert Plus and I've moved on to salon quality, so maybe those are ones that we can
right,
start there, and then peel away and eventually arrive to a collection of 5.
right.
And women do this. If you're a woman, you're listening right now, we all do it with something. It's either makeup, clothes, grooming, whatever, pots and
We
pans,
all do it.
plates. Yeah.
We all do it. And
Yeah.
it's so
So
like
you're saying if we identify when we decided we needed to begin holding on to those things, that's step one.
Yeah, I think that's a really good step when you're dealing with collectors or anybody in that capacity, because they're going to look for that moment and they may not share that moment with you, right?
Yeah.
They may not decide. But it kind of goes hand in hand with like a mind body connection. So I'll share one of my stories for this. And I wish I had known about NLP back then, because I would have saved myself about a year of suffering. But I remember when Val was about a year old, right around her first birthday, all of a sudden I had this debilitating back pain. And I literally suffered for about a year, to the point of like, there would be nights where I would just drop her off at her grandma's house and be like, I can't even pick her up. Like it physically is too painful for me to pick her up, let alone change her diaper. And I mean, it was the hardest time of my life. We talk about mom guilt, okay? Not being able to care for your child because you are in so much fucking pain.
Yeah.
And I was very resistant, right? So I had a friend who was in a Facebook mom group. I've never met her in person, but I think of her often because she changed my life. And she had recommended this book to me called Healing Back Pain. It's by Dr. John Sarno. So if you're listening to this and you have back pain, then I highly recommend this book. And basically, it explained the mind body connection and how we store trauma in our back. And at that time, I was a living, walking, breathing trauma. I don't think I was even a human anymore, because of everything that I had gone through leading up to her, being pregnant with her, my actual pregnancy, everything that happened that led to me being a single mom by the time she was 4 months old. I was I was literally a physical expression of my trauma at that point.
Wow.
So my friend who had recommended this book to me said, just read the book and you'll see a shift. And I was like, okay, I have been getting like quarterly epidurals. I was in that much pain.
Wow.
Quarterly epidurals, to the point where I maxed out my insurance. I was not even 30 yet. I was like 27 or 28 years old, like a fucking child, okay? And just in so much pain. And I was like, there is no way that reading a book is going. And so for the first, I'm going to say like 9 months, I blew her off. Like I was like, I'm not wasting, and so funny, right? Hindsight being 2020. I'm not wasting $10 on this book. I gotta pay all these copays.
Yes.
Doctor, God forbid I read a fucking book.
Yeah.
Which is so funny, because like I'm such an avid reader. Like I can't believe that I even resisted it for as long as
But
I.
years ago, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I was an avid reader my whole life, so I don't really know. But oh no, I do know. I do know why. I thought it was going to be something that was like too woo, and I was
Yeah.
extremely into Christianity and like very into my church at that point.
Right.
And that's a whole other conversation that we can have.
Yeah.
But I felt that if my elders and my pastor's prayers couldn't fix me, then I didn't deserve to be healed.
Mm.
And again, if you are listening to this right now and you identify as a Christian, I am not hating on you in any way, shape, or
Yeah.
form. But no matter what your religious um, affiliation, you deserve to live a good and healthy life. And I think
Yeah.
that everybody should know that,
Yeah.
and this idea that like, it was so funny when I looked at it, it was all tied together. Like I felt shame because I was a single mother, and that shame led to me not wanting to ask for help, and not wanting to ask for help led me to being in physical pain, and being in physical pain brought me right back to shame.
Yeah.
It just was a nasty fucking cycle. And so I read this book, and it told about how we store trauma specifically in our lower back. And that was,
Wow.
I mean, when I tell you I was having sciatica pain that was so bad, it would make you do unthinkable things.
Yeah.
Like
Well, there's another book. It's called The Body Keeps the Score.
I've heard of that book too, and I really want to read
So
it.
I own it, Lori. I like to read, but it is very heavy because he gives data and facts, and like
Yeah.
for my brain it was a little much. I need to reattempt it. But similar concepts. The body keeps the score, the body holds on to trauma. Where your pain is, it could correlate to what's happening on the inside.
Yeah.
And that we even carry weight sometimes. In they say survivors of sexual abuse
I was
sometimes carry weight in their lower belly. Yeah.
Absolutely, because it becomes like a literal protective layer. And
Yes.
to mention that society conditions us to think that big women or fat women are not beautiful, right? And
Yeah.
so if you're not perceived as beautiful by society standards, then no one will sexually assault you, which obviously we know is not true. Women of every size get
Yes.
sexually assaulted. Um, and it's flabbergasting. But yes, absolutely, that is a statistic that if you have experienced sexual trauma specifically, it will get stored in your abdomen. And so, and again, with emotional trauma, that can get stored in your back and in other areas of your life. But it's funny because symbolically, right, our subconscious mind relies so heavily on um, symbols. What my back pain was actually preventing me from doing, again, to touch on that moving, was moving forward with my life. It was literally anchoring me to this very, very real pain point of not feeling like enough, not feeling like I was doing enough, not feeling like I was good enough, having to fill that role of both mom and dad because that was my reality at that point in time.
Yeah.
And it was extremely, I mean, it was physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually a really painful time for me, and I'm really thankful that at some point that pain got to be so great that I was willing to do something outside of my comfort zone. And I think that's how a lot of people end up in one-on-one coaching and even group coaching, is that they've kind of reached their pain threshold for their life is unfolding in front of them,
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
still, it took me another 4 years after that to, hire a coach and decide to get certified in all of this.
So isn't it interesting how this all of these things we've discussed, that it really became your pain to power story,
1000%. And
where now you've been led here.
yeah, it's incredible. And it's so funny because I've had some deja vu while we're sitting here talking. And I always take deja vu as just, a past dream come to reality. And I love that so much because it always lets me know that I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
And I think it's super powerful. And you're right, it is my pain to power story, and it's one that I cherish very much because,
Yeah.
like I said, I know I've been through a lot of different things. And so for that reason, I think I can give a lot of different kinds of people
Right.
for a better tomorrow. And that's
Yes.
really what counts.
So Lori, for anyone listening, how do you have anything to offer at this point in time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am taking on a limited number of one on one clients right now. I'm about 6 for the summer. We'll revisit again in the fall, but I am limiting myself a little bit right now so I can make sure all my clients are getting the absolute best of me. I do not
Right.
overload my schedule. And then, really exciting, that I haven't even had a chance to discuss with you because the idea came to me while I was at my retreat, actually, which made it even more special, is that I'm going to be doing a group coaching session. It's going to be like a mommy's summer camp, if you will. It's going to last
Cute.
7 weeks. Yeah. And we're going to be addressing essentially mom guilt and how that factors into our family lives. We're going to be
Yeah.
working through childhood stuff. It's a little bit of the heavy lifting, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I want to give people a taste of what I got to experience last week, which was a complete, total transformation of how I relate to my daughter.
Yeah.
And I've always prided myself on being a good mom. And I didn't even realize that I was missing some of her cues. And so
Yeah.
it has allowed me to relate to her on a level that honestly I was kind of starting to be afraid that we'd never connect on.
Yeah.
So it's so incredibly transformational, and I cannot wait to share the details. There's going to be EFT included in that. There's going to be hypnosis included in that. Obviously it's founded with NLP built into it, as all my coaching is. So I'm just really, really excited because I know that there's going to be a lot of moms. There's only going to be 12 spots open, but there's going to be a lot of moms that are impacted by this because it will create a ripple effect, not just in their own lives, but in their families' lives. And because we're doing it over the summer, it's a really, really good opportunity for them to continue connecting with their children during the summertime
Right.
before they send them back to school and kind of get back into that grind energy,
Right.
you know?
And Lori, do you maintain any kind of confidentiality if there's a mother or a client who wants to work with you but doesn't want it to be common knowledge they're working with a coach?
Oh, yeah, we could work that into an agreement. Absolutely. Currently, my agreement actually states that if we work together, I can use some information, never naming names, obviously,
Right. Right.
as social proof. But if a
Right.
client were to come to me and say to me, listen, I'm not comfortable with this, I would be glad to strike that out of the agreement. It is not something that is necessary in order to work with me. Although,
Right.
of course, as you know, when you're working in the online space, social proof is super
Oh
important.
yeah. Yeah.
So if somebody is comfortable with me, talking about their progress just without saying their name,
Right. Right.
obviously that works.
And I ask because that removes an objection, because for me, I hesitated to get a business coach because for a while I was afraid of, well, oh, she needs a coach. She must not be that good. I didn't, it was that like chatter in my head. And then
Right,
I eventually got to the point where I'm like, coaching is only going to make me better. It doesn't mean I'm not good. It's
right,
just refining me. So anybody who needs any sort of life coaching, NLP, it's refining you. It's nothing to be ashamed of. But if you, for some reason, want to be discreet,
right. Yeah, and it's really funny, right? Because I felt the same way, but more about the investment that came along with it. So I
yeah,
was more of the mind frame of like people are going to look at me like I'm so high and mighty hiring a coach, like,
yeah,
oh, she must be doing well. She has all this money to pay these coaches, and
yeah.
it's like, well, either way, even if that's true, that's none of your business. That's
Oh,
none.
girl, my new thing is I'm investing in me.
Yeah,
I'm pouring into me, which inevitably affects everyone, my son, my fiance, my clients, my friends.
people who don't even know you.
Yeah, in public.
And yeah, in public, on social,
Yeah,
it's so interesting because I want to touch back on what you said. Like people embarrassed to like have a coach. Well, who's not embarrassed to have coaches? NFL players.
yeah,
Like imagine them showing up
yeah,
to a game to the Super Bowl with no coaches.
right.
Like professionals hire coaches.
Yes.
The
And you
people.
can, it doesn't mean you're weak.
No, it means you want to be the best at what you do.
Yeah,
Point
yeah,
blank, period. If you
right.
want to be the best, you need coaching.
Yeah, yep, 100%. So, Lori, this has been an incredible conversation.
Thank you
I
so
loved
much.
having you. I know we could go on for hours, so
You did
maybe
no
we'll have
harm.
to, have you on again.
Would love
But listeners, all of the links to find Lori or Laurence, they'll be listed in the show notes or they'll be listed under the video. So thank you so much again, Lori, and you have an amazing rest of your week.
you too. Thank you so much for having me, Tara.
Pleasure. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.